guys, it's Destiny, and today we're going to be going over the best Anaxa teams. And before we begin today's video, I would love to know if you are personally pulling for Anaxa yourself or potentially skipping him and for who. Lastly, if you enjoy videos like these, you make sure to subscribe, leave a like to support the video, and now let's get straight into it. To start, I thought we could do a quick character overview of Anaxa, which he is a Wind Erudition character who revolves around implanting every weakness onto enemies, which will further improve his damage output against them. Anaxa will inflict the qualitative disclosure state on enemy targets when they have at least 5 different weaknesses, and Anaxa will deal increased damage to enemies that do have the qualitative disclosure state. Plus, when enemies are under this state, Anaxa will deal an additional instance of his skill when he attacks. I know it says skill / basic attack, but just to clarify this, essentially what it is, let's say he did a basic attack, immediately afterwards he'll do a skill. And then if he does a skill, immediately afterwards, he'll do a skill. So it's essentially just a free skill after you attack any enemy with the qualitative disclosure state, either with his skill or basic attack. And what's really nice about this is that the additional skill does not consume skill points. So that's another noteworthy thing to mention regarding him attacking enemies with the qualitative disclosure state. And then also when Anaxa uses his ultimate, he will inflict all enemies with sublimation, which will inflict every weakness onto them. Sublimation is going to be a great way for him to immediately take advantage of the qualitative disclosure state, which now allows him to deal that additional skill after he uses a basic attack or his skill. So overall, Anaxa is going to have very high attacking frequency when it comes to attacking enemies that do have qualitative disclosure inflicted onto them. And Anaxa will also be able to be paired on dual DPS teams, as well as even going the hyper carry route. So let's actually start off with the dual DPS Anaxa teams. So for our first Anaxa team, it would be Anaxa alongside the Herta, and Anaxa will definitely be one of the best partners to use alongside the Herta. The reason why this is due to his attacking frequency. As I mentioned earlier, he will be able to do that additional skill when enemies have qualitative disclosure inflicted onto them. Because of that, Anaxa is going to be able to regenerate more energy for the Herta due to him being able to attack enemies pretty frequently. And also, if you do use a character like Tribbie on the team, Anaxa will be able to assist Tribbie as well as Herta when it comes to generating more energy for them. Additionally, when it comes to the Herta specifically, Anaxa is going to be able to nicely assist with stacking more interpretation stacks onto enemies due to the fact that he will be able to attack twice in a row. If you do have Tribbie on the team, she's going to help out with this as well. Then depending on what your sustain is, they can also help with this. For example, Lingsha has very high attacking frequency when it comes to her skills, her ultimate, her follow-up. So Lingsha is going to be a really nice partner here. So Anaxa, the Herta, and then a support or sustain is going to be a very strong core just to make for the Herta specifically, and should be a pretty nice pairing when it comes to using this team and basically all the endgame modes. When it comes to the support, I really like Tribbie on this type of team, but of course you can use other characters such as Robin and Ruan. The reason why Tribbie is really nice is because she'll be able to unleash a follow-up attack after your characters use their ultimates, which can be Anaxa's ultimate, Herta's ultimate, and then depending on what sustain you use, their ultimate as well. So Tribbie being able to unleash those follow-up attacks will be useful for Herta generating more energy and also just assisting with stacking interpretation onto enemies. And then, of course, Tribbie's buffs are team-wide, so they are going to nicely benefit Anaxa's damage as well as Herta's damage. If you are using Robin, she is also a team-wide buffer. She's going to be able to provide damage buffs. She's going to be able to provide those massive attack buffs when she does use her ultimate, and her ultimate will also be able to provide a 100% advance forward for the entire team. So that is still very useful to take advantage of. So Robin can be a very nice team-wide buffer for the team as well. And then when it comes to using Ruan, she can also be a pretty nice option due to the fact that she also has team-wide buffs, which can include the damage buffs she has. She has speed buffs, which can further the speed of all the characters on the team and can allow them to act more frequently. She's also able to provide the ult type res pen buff with her ultimate, which is very useful. Tribbie also has this buff with her skill. So Ruan overall is going to also be a pretty nice team-wide buffer. If you are going with a dual DPS Anaxa team, so in this case Anaxa and the Herta, I would recommend having your third slot be a character that is able to provide buffs for both of them, as they will both be able to deal nice damage output overall. Anaxa's role here, while it is more so a secondary DPS, he is still going to be able to inflict a nice amount of damage alongside the Herta, especially accounting for the fact that he can skill twice in a row. And what's really nice, as I mentioned, even if he does a basic attack, the skill will still happen afterward as long as enemies are inflicted with qualitative disclosure. So let's say you're running out of skill points with this type of team. So let's say you want to skill spam with the Herta, you're using skills on other characters too, you might run into situations where your skill points might end up getting really low. What you can end up doing is just doing a basic attack with Anaxa, and now he'll do his skill right after, assuming that the enemy has qualitative disclosure inflicted onto them. So I do personally really like that flexibility that Anaxa is going to be able to provide. For the Herta teams, you can either use his skill or his basic attack depending on the scenario. If you're running out of skill points, you can just opt for the basic attack. Let's say you're using Tribbie and her skill buff is almost up and you are running really low on skill points, you can use a basic attack with your sustain and then maybe use a basic attack with Anaxa. It just depends on what the scenario is, but I do personally like the flexibility that he does have regarding that. And also, if you do not want to use like Ruame, Tribbie, or Robin, you can also go for a character like Pela. Pela is going to be able to reduce all enemy defenses. You technically could use a character like Jiacho. He can inflict those vulnerabilities onto enemies. So there's going to be multiple options that you can go with when it comes to the supportive slot. And if you do want to use a single target buffer, that is also okay. The only thing to know regarding that is that you will have to decide between buffing Anaxa or the Herta. So that is something to keep in mind, which is why I more so recommend a team-wide buffer more than anything. As for your sustain, honestly, there are plenty of options you can go with. I really like Lingsha just because of her attacking frequency, and she is going to be able to nicely regenerate energy for the Herta as well as Tribbie, and also stacking interpretation onto enemies as well. Plus, due to the fact that Anaxa is able to inflict all weaknesses onto enemies, Lingsha's attacking frequency will be pretty useful when it comes to actually getting closer to breaking enemies as well. Since Anaxa will be able to inflict every weakness, now let's say the enemy didn't have fire weakness and now they do, Lingsha will be able to nicely take advantage of this to actually work towards breaking that enemy. So that's also something to keep in mind. Now, when it comes to the other sustains, let's just go over a couple of them. When it comes to Huohuo, she's going to be able to provide those attack buffs and then the energy as well. The energy is going to be useful for just getting closer to being able to use your ultimates. Aventurine is nice for his shielding capabilities. He is also able to inflict those follow-ups onto enemies. Gallagher is able to attack frequently as long as you have like a higher amount of speed on him. You could do his basic attack, then his ultimate, then basic attack once again. So there is some frequency in his attacks as well. Personally though, I am the biggest fan of Lingsha on a team like this just because of her AoE frequency. But of course, you can definitely use other supports and other sustains as well. Overall though, Anaxa and Herta will be a very, very strong pair. And also stay tuned for a showcase on them. I will be uploading one very, very soon. And if you do want to know when that video ends up getting uploaded, do consider subscribing as it does help out the channel. And when it comes to more Anaxa teams, so another dual DPS team you can consider doing with Anaxa is actually Anaxa and Jade. This can potentially be a possibility just because of the fact that Anaxa will be able to attack frequently. We do have Lingsha on the team though. Lingsha also has a nice attacking frequency. I feel like this team can be a pretty nice option for Pure Fiction, potentially even Memory of Chaos. I would have to do more testing regarding that, but either way, you can technically do this type of dual DPS team. Another one you can actually do, which I actually got this suggestion recently in one of my comments, and I was like, wait, this is such a cool team idea, is Anaxa and Himiko. Anaxa is going to be able to inflict fire weakness onto enemies, which now allows Himiko to have the potential to break them, or even allies have the potential to break them now, due to the fact that all the weaknesses will be inflicted onto them. When it comes to the rest of the team, let's say you wanted more weakness breaking efficiency, this is where Ruame will be very helpful. What you technically could do if you want to try a no sustain team, you could try Ruan-Mei and then going with, let's say, Fugue for the last slot. Or you could just stick with Ruan-Mei and then maybe go with the sustain. It would ultimately be up to you, but I think this would be a pretty cool dual DPS team. I could definitely see this being very fun in Pure Fiction, and also use a team-wide buffer of your choice. Ruame will be really good for the weakness breaking efficiency, as she'll allow you to break enemies faster, which benefits Himeko. But of course, you can also use Robin, you can use Tribbie, so on. And then for the sustain, you can go with Linksha, you can go with Gallagher, you can go with Huohua for more energy for the team. You can go with Aventurine. It just depends ultimately on what you have, but there's definitely options you could take advantage of. I'm more than likely going to try to showcase this for you all and just see how it ends up doing and just how fun it is as well. Definitely mess around with more potential synergies when it comes to dual DPS specifically, but when it comes to hyper carry Anaxa, now this is what I wanted to talk about due to the fact that you can technically use Anaxa as a hyper carry character, especially since he's going to be able to do basically those 2 skills in a row if you have qualitative disclosure inflicted onto enemies. So real quick, before I actually show a team, I wanted to show this quick example I made. Alright, so I had to temporarily move out of the way to show this example. This is basically an attacking frequency example featuring Sunday as well as Anaxa. So to make this simple, let's say that each of Anaxa's skill does roughly 200,000 damage, just as a base number. So this is easy to explain. So his first skill is going to do 200,000, and then the second skill right after is going to do another 200,000. This now results in 400,000 damage dealt total. Now, if you have it speed tuned to where Anaxa goes first and then Sunday goes after, then Sunday can advance forward Anaxa, and now Anaxa will be able to do that once again. So his skill with 200,000 damage, and then his second skill with another 200,000 damage, which is a total of 400,000 once again. But this now results in an overall total of 800,000 damage dealt to enemies. And with the speed tuning, you would want Sunday 1 speed or more lower than Anaxa. So let's say you had a 135 speed Anaxa, you will want to do 134 speed Sunday for this particular example. And this will allow Anaxa to attack even more frequently, and as a result, deal very frequent instances of damage. You can do this as well with a character like Bronya. The only thing you will have to keep in mind of though is if you do use Bronya, you have to really keep track of your skill point usage. Since if Anaxa is using his skill point, that's already -1 skill point, then getting advanced forward and then Anaxa going again, you definitely have to keep in mind of your skill point usage if you decide to do something like this. Alrighty, now that we're back on the team screen, when it comes to hyper carry Anaxa, some of the characters that will pair very nicely with him would consist of characters like Sunday, Tribbie, Robin, you can use Ruame, you can use Remembrance Trailblazer, and so on. So starting off with Sunday, the reason I really like Sunday and Anaxa is Sunday is going to be able to provide Anaxa crit rate, which it would be 20% crit rate. So if your Anaxa has 80% crit rate, now Sunday is going to be able to ensure that it is 100% within battle. Sunday is also going to be able to provide the 100% action advance, which I just showed an example of how this could potentially be powerful for Anaxa. And also Sunday is going to be able to provide a bunch of crit damage for Anaxa as well. On top of that, Sunday does have the damage boost as well. Plus, Sunday's ultimate will also give Anaxa additional energy that Anaxa is able to use his ultimate more frequently, which can result in you being able to reapply sublimation onto enemies, and then also being able to just deal more damage overall. You can consider using a character like Bronya when it comes to the action advance as well as her buffs. Do keep in mind though of the skill point usage of the team if you do decide to go with Bronya. When it comes to Remembrance Trailblazer, they could be a pretty nice option. Remembrance Trailblazer is going to be able to provide that action advance once Mem is fully charged, and then also provide Mem support for Anaxa as well, which will now result in Anaxa being able to take advantage of true damage as well. So that could be pretty useful. And then when it comes to our other supportive characters I have on screen, when it comes to Robin, now a really powerful hyper carry Anaxa team you could do is Sunday, Robin, and then Huohua. Sunday will be able to provide that action advance as well as the other buffs I mentioned. Robin will be able to provide damage boosts, the attack boost with her ultimate, being able to advance everyone forward with her ultimate, and so on. So Robin's going to be very useful here. And then if you do use Huohua, Huohua is going to be very useful for the energy she's going to be able to give back to all allies with her ultimate. This will assist with getting more energy for Robin, getting more energy for Sunday, and getting more energy for Anaxa. Plus, because of the fact that Huohua is assisting with getting back more energy for Sunday, this now results in you getting even more energy back for Anaxa, since Sunday will get his ultimate sooner. So that is a very powerful team you can use, and funnily enough, that's also a team that Agalaya really enjoys as well. And you can also, of course, use a different buffer as well. You can use Tribbie, the old type res pen buff with her skill, And she's also going to activate her zone when she uses her ultimate, which will make enemies receive more damage. So Tribbie is also a very nice option to consider using here. You can use Ruan for the buffs that she provides, which can be the damage boost. The speed boost can be very useful, the ult-type res pen buff from the ultimate, and so on. As for sustains, I already mentioned why Huohuo is very useful. You can technically use Linksha, you can use Gallagher, you can use Aventurine. This really just comes down to what sustains you have. I will say though, I really like Huohuo for hyper carry and Naxa, depending on what the team is. But as I mentioned, Robin's a very nice pair. Even in the case of Tribbie, if you have a character like Huohuo, Huohuo is going to be able to give more energy to Tribbie as well. And when it comes to Tribbie in particular, if you do, I guess, use a character like Linksha, then Linksha's attacking frequency will be useful for Tribbie as well. But I will say that I personally really like Huohuo when it comes to using hyper carry and Naxa. And also, if you want to use different characters, you can use Pela for her defense reduction that she'll inflict onto all enemies with her ultimate. You can use a character like Jiao Cho. There are multiple options you can use when it comes to the Harmony characters as well as Nihility characters. And another thing I wanted to talk about is actually using Break Anaxa. We'll just talk about this real quick. So when it comes to Break Anaxa, since he is able to attack so frequently, this actually can be a potential for him to take advantage of, which can consist of going no sustain or sustain. What's really cool though about the break potential is that let's say you did use Break Anaxa and you did have a character like Linksha on the team who's able to attack very frequently and can also deal a nice amount of break damage of her own. Anaxa being able to inflict that fire weakness guaranteed onto enemies so that she's able to take advantage of this to break enemies. And then if you have a super break character on the team, for example, Harmony Trailblazer or Fugue, then this now allows Linksha to deal a nice amount of damage output of her own. As for Anaxa, he'll be able to still deal a nice amount of damage as well, especially with a character like Ruan on the team who's able to give the buffs that she does. But that can actually be a pretty fun potential to consider. I would say though, when it comes to his strongest role overall, it would be alongside the Herta, and then maybe even considering the hyper carry potential with characters like Sunday, Robin, Tribbie, and so on. But the break team is still a potential, and it's definitely a fun potential as well that you can take advantage of. And I do like that Anaxa has two ways that you can play him. You can go with the hyper carry route or the dual DPS route, and both of these options are very fun. I personally like playing both of them. I will say when it comes to the dual DPS route, especially with the Herta, Anaxa does fit very nicely there. But once again, if you want to mess around with a hyper carry Anaxa, that potential is also there. But I think it's pretty cool that he can be used multitudes of ways. But yeah, I hope you all enjoyed this video. That'll be it for today. Anaxa showcases will be coming very, very soon. So do stay tuned for those, and I will have some more videos as well coming out throughout the week. And if you did enjoy this video, do make sure to subscribe, leave a like to support the video, and I hope to see you all next time. Peace.